Your body is made up of these things called cells, and the cells in your brain are called neurons. So if your brain was like a house, the neurons would be like the people that are living in it. In normal people's brains, neurons talk to each other with something called neurotransmitters. Neuro, transmitter. Neurotransmitter.
Yay!
One of these neurotransmitters is called dopamine. Neurons can talk to each other with dopamine, but sometimes you can have too little or too much. Because some people don't have the right amount of dopamine, they can get something called schizophrenia. Let's say it together. Schizophrenia. Schizophrenia.
Yay!
People with schizophrenia can get confused, forget things. They hear things that aren't really there. They see imaginary friends. Sometimes they even talk funny.
We remember you. Now that you're older, let's talk more about the brain.
There are different areas in the brain called lobes. Each lobe processes different information.
For example, the temporal lobe is in charge of hearing and sound. The prefrontal cortex is in the frontal lobe, and it is important in having a good judgment, planning, attention, and emotional responses.
In order to have your brain functioning well, you need a careful balance of neurotransmitters.
Do you remember neurotransmitters? How do they work? Cells have these things on their surface called receptors. For dopamine, dopamine can only open the dopamine receptors. Dopamine is one of these so-called happy hormones. It is important in rewarding behavior, and it also makes you feel good and motivated. And it's also really important in the prefrontal cortex.
Doing hard drugs like cocaine changes your normal dopamine levels and can make you addicted to the drug.
One reason why scientists support the dopamine hypothesis is because these drugs can have side effects that look almost the same as schizophrenia symptoms, such as hallucinations and paranoia.
So in conclusion, don't do drugs.
Oh, it's
You again. Let's learn neurobiology.
Dopamine is made in the ventral tegmental area from a molecule called tyrosine, and it's sent down four main pathways in the brain. We will only talk about the first two. The mesolimbic pathway starts in the ventral tegmental area, VTA, and goes to the nucleus accumbens. It's involved in pleasure-seeking behaviors and reward system/addiction. It's believed that there is too much dopamine in this pathway, leading to what are called positive symptoms. This includes visual and auditory hallucinations, paranoia, and delusional behavior. The mesocortical pathway goes to the prefrontal cortex. It is involved in attention, cognition, emotions, and executive functions, such as judgment. It's believed that there is too little dopamine in this pathway, leading to negative symptoms, including inability to initiate plans, altered mood, difficulty speaking, and expressing emotion.
Another observation supporting the dopamine hypothesis is that many treatment drugs for schizophrenia aim to regulate dopamine.
So by helping normalize dopamine levels, you can actually relieve the symptoms of schizophrenia. This suggests that dopamine plays an important role in the pathology of schizophrenia.
It was fun watching you grow up and teaching you all about the dopamine hypothesis.
Go out there and ace BIPM 152.